Hi, I am Joseph Kao.
And I'm Alan Whitton.
Al, what are we talking about in today's podcast?
Well, we are going to be looking at how we can take a little bit more control over our thoughts, over what we do with our grey matter, with our mind.
Yeah.
One of the things being mindfulness.
Mindfulness. And hopefully a slightly different angle on mindfulness than you might hear regularly. Today we're going to be looking at mindfulness in terms of how it can give us more self-command. Now, self-command's not something that's talked about a lot. It's not such a fashionable phrase as it might once have been. It sounds almost a bit Victorian, having command over yourself. And there's something in mindfulness that I think can get overlooked. The definition of mindfulness, okay, the standard definition is the act of gently but persistently bringing your attention into the present moment. And the way it's often used in Western psychology is to help people who are caught up in worries, caught up in stressful thoughts, who are thinking, oh God, what have I got to do next? Or I hope that doesn't happen, I hope this doesn't happen, to come back to the present, to come back to the present moment. And it's been found to have a huge number of therapeutic benefits. Yeah. It's stress reducing, it helps people manage and overcome depression, it can help people be more creative. It's very much the buzzword of the decade in terms of psychology, isn't it? But one way that we can be more specific about how to develop mindfulness and how to have it be something where instead of saying, all right, I just need to be more present, I just need to be more mindful, is thinking, okay, what are we specifically doing when we're doing a mindfulness exercise? Now, some of the classic exercises that are taught in mindfulness trainings are, for example, you look at a raisin, you get the magic raisin, any old raisin, and you focus your attention on it as you're eating it. You really luxuriate in the taste of it, the texture of it. You see the way the light shines off the waxy coating of the raisin, and everything, you put all of your attention on it. And then another exercise might be focusing on your breathing, being very, very aware of your breathing, and if a thought comes into your awareness, if you get distracted by thoughts, you just notice them, just observe them, you bring your attention back to your breathing. So what we're really doing in mindfulness is training something that's normally a bit unconscious and chaotic, and that's the way that you pay attention. Yeah. So the way that we often pay attention is normally, if we don't train ourselves, it's normally, for a lot of people anyway, it's being lost in thought a bit. Yeah,
I mean, there's two things that I just want to talk about just really quickly, and they are related. Some of the coolest graffiti that I've ever seen, where I walk my children to school, absolutely profound. There's two fences, one either side, and on one side it's somebody's scrawled "Be present," and on the other side they've scrawled on the wall, "Now is all there is." And for me, these two pieces of graffiti, for me, sum up completely what mindfulness is and what I want it to be. Just coming back to what you were saying about being that observer, something that I'll talk about with people when I'm working with them is an analogy for thoughts. Is I'll say, maybe you did, when you were a little child, you get a little paper boat and put it in the stream, and then you just watch that little paper boat bobbing up and down. If you have got sort of unwanted thoughts, is to use that analogy of the little paper boat. So you're not the paper boat bobbing up and down, and bumping into rocks. You're away from that. But you're in that observing capacity where you're just watching something and then float off. So you're not really. That thing doesn't have a hold over you, that thought, I guess.
Yeah. And I think this is what's so interesting about the concept of mindfulness, is that it's actually a bit of a catch-all for a number of different ways of paying attention. Paying attention. The mindfulness, it originates in Zen Buddhism or in various different Buddhist practices, and there are actually a number of different ways that you can train yourself to pay attention, and that the way that mindfulness is used in the West, it's been separated from its religious, spiritual leanings, and there's sometimes a lack of specificity about, okay, what are we doing in learning mindfulness? So there's a researcher called Les Fenny, and he teaches a process he calls open focus. And there's tremendous overlaps with mindfulness and open focus. But the advantage of open focus is it gives us a very specific way of talking about what kind of attention, what kind of attentional skill we're training at any one moment. Now, Les Fenny was interested in neurofeedback some decades ago, and he was trying to find out what kinds of techniques can help people to calm down their brain waves so that they go into a phase synchronous alpha state where all the sympathetic nervous system calms down and people relax more, and it has all the benefits essentially of mindfulness. And he found that of all the different questions that you could ask someone to help them to access this more mindful, open state, where instead of being fixated in narrow focus, instead of thinking about this and thinking about that, they broaden their awareness and enter into a much more grounded, calm state. And he found that asking people to visualize space, he called it objectless imagery. So one of his starting questions is often, can you imagine the distance between your eyes? And he pauses and gets people to just really focus on the space that's there. But not even to really focus on it, but to kind of allow your awareness to just be aware of the space, the distance that's between your eyes, the distance that's between the bridge of your nose and the rear part of your skull. To just be aware of the distance between the top of your head and the tip of your chin. To start to become aware of the space that's between and around your fingers. To become aware of the space that's all around you. There's a Taoist technique of listening into the space and listening into the silence that's behind your head. So in numerous different meditative traditions, there's this idea and this technique of broadening your awareness and becoming aware of space.
It's quite trancey stuff, actually, isn't it?
It is.
You know, I just
it is.
sort of, did it a little bit for a couple of seconds, and I thought, oh, wow, it is very quiet.
And he had people hooked up to EEG machines, and he found of all the questions he could ask them, it was that, can you imagine the distance between your eyes, immediately calmed down the brain waves. And Les Fenny is very, very specific about what kind of attention are you training at any one point. He has this this quadrant diagram set up where you're saying that you can be narrowing your attention or broadening it at any one point. It's, you know, is your attention focusing, or is it broad? And at the same time, are you immersed in what you're doing, or are you objective? Are you detached from it? So you can be immersed in a painting, beautiful painting, or you can be stepping back from it and analysing how it was painted and studying the technique. And it's not that one's better than the other.
Yeah, exactly.
They all have different skills. They're different. You know, if you're writing a thesis about that painting, you want to be able to both examine the brush strokes and examine the form of it and the layout, and then at the same time, you also want to have the ability to be immersed in it.
Well, it's like,
enjoy it.
It's like food. You know, good food it has to look good, but it has to taste good as well. But you know, when you're looking at it, obviously you are, you know, oh, okay, you can appreciate, you've got that sort of distance, but it's when you're eating it that you really fully immerse in the richness and the, the pleasure that you know, eating it.
Exactly. So from Les Fenny's perspective, and numerous other people's as well, we habitually, so coming right back to what we were saying at the beginning, the bad habit that we get into is habitually getting into a narrow, worried, kind of objective focus about thinking about this, oh God, look at that bill, that needs paying, or that needs doing, or what have I got to do next? The body becomes tense, and we've learnt a bad habit in terms of how we pay attention, not just what we pay attention to, but how we pay attention. And the open focus technique is all about correcting that balance. It's about coming back into
Yeah.
a more balanced, ready state where you can focus in on things, but your default state is of much more of an open, broad, present awareness. So I find that one really effective way of thinking about that is that it's a way of taking command of yourself, rather than wandering through life fixated on thoughts. There's a quality to it, and it comes right back to that definition of mindfulness as well. The idea of gently but persistently bringing your attention into the present moment. There's a quality there of self-command, of coming back to yourself, of broadening your awareness. So that's something to really try out as an experiment that you can do any time. If you're in a mental fog, or you're thinking about lost in thoughts, so on and so forth, just broadening your awareness, picking a spot on the wall, broadening your awareness into the space around you visually, listening to the space behind you, listening to the silence behind you, becoming more aware of the space that's there, the distance between your eyes, the space between and around your fingers, and it's a very, very effective way of counteracting that habitual narrow focus, so that you can be more in command of yourself.
So effectively, you're putting your attention on, I guess your sensory inputs. What you're hearing, and maybe there is a little bit of directing it. Or thinking about the distance between one thing and the other, and sort of considering that space. But it's not a something that is promoting any kind of self-dialogue. It's a noticing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the doing that you're doing. It is just observation. It's just noticing. It's no more than that. Is that right?
Yeah, very much so. Well, the word self-command might suggest sort of Victorian rigidity. I am in full
and
command.
very authoritarian.
Exactly. But what we're really talking about here is a balance. It's neither. I mean, perhaps you know my thoughts about about stage hypnosis and its best friend, direct authoritarian hypnosis. But the whole stage hypnosis
the power hypnotist.
But it's not. I mean, the power hypnotists, they do their lovely, I am the hypnotist thing. That's great for them. But the hypnotee, as they're called, the fact that the cultural role that person's supposed to play is, it's the collapse. It's the total.
There's a lack of engagement.
And that whole slumping is one end of the spectrum. Some people's idea of relaxation is to collapse, and then at the other end of the spectrum, the idea of self-control, I'm in control of myself, is I am in full control. Now, neither of those two things are healthy states of mind to live your life in. I'm sure perhaps they both have their own value. People do get value out of direct stage hypnosis type stuff. People might get some value out of being rigidly in control. If they're a Covent Garden mime artist, maybe, I don't know. But in terms of a healthy place to live your life, you want to have that gently persistent ability to be in command of yourself, but also not with any extraneous tension in your body. So it's finding that balance. Yeah,
there's a lovely, which kind of really is in sync with what you're saying. There's a lovely black and white clip on YouTube, and it's Bruce Lee doing his little skit about be water. This is a big thing in martial arts, and he's talking. I'm not going to do my Bruce Lee impression, I promise, but it's saying about, if you put water into a teapot, it becomes a teapot. You put it into a glass, it becomes a glass. It can crash, so it's a powerful thing. But if you just look at a glass of water, you'd never think that'd be something that, if there was enough of it, could sweep away houses, as we've kind of recently seen. But it's this idea of, I suppose, having that flexibility to, if you need to have more rigidity within some area of your life, then that's fine. If you need to be more relaxed in some area of your life or in your thinking, then that's fine too. But for me, one of the things that is important